Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, an army of militant vegan protesters stormed the property of a farmer and they quickly learned why you never mess with a farmer. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is a petty revenge story. Back in November, my wife had her phone number stolen. The first we knew about it was when I called her from work and it went to the voicemail of a different network provider. Fairly shortly after, they started getting into her financial apps and changing logins and passwords trying to access credit cards. We locked everything down, but they managed to max out a credit card. It was a traumatic time for my wife and I was quite angry about it. I toyed with the idea of getting a burner phone and making threatening calls, but I was warned off from doing this, but I needed to do something. Cue the petty revenge. I stumbled across a mention of an SMS bombing website on a sub on Reddit and I decided to have a look. Oh my word, this was perfect. And knowing that they would be using the phone to receive OTP texts, it seemed the best way to disrupt them. I could send up to 200 texts at a time at a rate of either slow, medium or fast, so I sent 200 at the fast rate and then 200 more. Then I left it for about an hour and then sent 200 at the slow rate and then 200 more. Looking into the website more, I found that I could also schedule texts to be sent, only 25 at a time though, so I scheduled 25 to be sent every hour through the night. The next day, I carried on with my onslaught of 200 at a time. If my calculations are correct, I sent in excess of 6,000 texts in a 24-hour period. When I'd finished, I withheld my number and dialed my wife's number. It was dead, it no longer existed, mission accomplished. And yeah, Ripe stars, that is certainly a brilliant way of getting revenge. And because it was so nice, let's continue with another petty revenge story. So my wife wanted us to get married in a church. I have my opinions about that, but given that she wanted it and it would make her happy, that made me happy, so I gave no pushback on that whatsoever. Let's forget about the fact that the benevolent, generous, loving church required a $1,000 donation to conduct the ceremony and sign the marriage certificate, but I digress. And by the way, Ripe stars, I'm curious, since I know that Americans don't pay any kind of church tax or something like that, is it normal for churches to require you to donate around $1,000 or something like that in order to get married there? I've never heard about that before, but it seems interesting. Anyway, come the wedding day, we walk down the aisle surrounded by friends and family. The ceremony goes wonderfully. We walk back out and start talking to some of the guests and smile, laugh and just be happy. I then noticed my sister, who was part of my wedding party, was teary-eyed. I looked closer and noticed that she had been crying. I asked her what happened and why she was crying, but she would not budge. I then found out my wife had also been crying before the ceremony. I then come to find out that this deacon, who had been part of the ceremony, had told my wife right before she was to walk down the aisle and get married that she couldn't do so because she did not have a veil. She was told right before she was to be married that she was not allowed to walk down the aisle because of her damn veil. Let's just say I was seeing red. Let's just say I was prepared to burn down the world. Let's just say I became angry. I knew that my sister's tears were something to do with the deacon as well, which made this 100% worse, but I was not about to ruin my wife's wedding day by making a scene, and my friends encouraged me to deal with it later as well. So I temporarily let it go. Rest of the wedding day went phenomenally. Everyone had a blast and we couldn't have been happier, but when we got back from the honeymoon, I took a trip to that church. I took 2 trips to that church. In fact, I took 3 trips to that church, and each time I calmly, but with what I expect was to look demonic anger on my face, went to their front office and complained and argued and fought with literally anyone who was there. I demanded to speak with whoever was in charge, not the man upstairs obviously, and spoke to some head of the church board or some crap like that. I demanded punishment for the deacon, for a face-to-face apology, for some kind of repercussion or retribution for bringing my wife and sister to tears on my wedding day. I'm a lawyer, so I've gotten very used to arguing and arguing and arguing. As much as I wanted to throttle the man that did this, I forced a civilized lens to take precedence and dealt with it that way. It's been months from what I've been told, and from my own observation, he's been fired. I was also told that he had a reputation, whatever that meant, but I'm convinced my poking and prodding and stabbing at the subject finally got that miserable prick fired from his oh so self-righteous position. My sister still has not told me what made her cry that day, but the coincidence is just too great. And yeah, ripe stars, now I will give you what you've been all waiting for, the title story. Also, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to like the video and maybe post a comment, because that would help me tremendously in regards to my algorithm standing. So I have worked and lived on a cattle farm my entire life, and only in recent years have I started to have problems with the vegan community. On my farm, I do 3 main things, all relating to cattle. I breed them, I use them to produce dairy products, and I humanely butcher them. I know that more vegans are around than before, but I also think the community has gone a little crazy and violent as time passed by. In the last 10 years or so, it has not been uncommon to get letters in the mail from people saying that I'm horrible to animals and that meat is murder. Meanwhile, I doubt that most of them know the first thing when it comes to my job and life. I had not hated vegans or anything, as they were just sending letters and being a market that didn't buy my products. In the last few years, some of them have been getting a little bolder with things they've been doing. At first, small things that I couldn't prove who was behind it, but I always knew it was them. There were literal bags of poop left on my doorstep, as if that would bother somebody who works with livestock. Random pamphlets and things telling me that I was going to hell and that I'm a horrible person. And other small annoyances. The vegans in the area seem to have banded together though and created a club where they figured the best solution to the problem was to face it head on. Now I'm just one person and have 2 others working for me, plus my wife and small children who during all of this were lucky in the house, safe and sound. So anyway, the event was this. About 200 vegans stormed my property and destroyed my fence in order to get into my property. I tried to tell them off for trespassing and warn them to leave, but they were not listening or caring about anything. One even told me that it was not trespassing because they were gonna save and protect all the animals that I was harming. They just walked into my property and started taking photos, even taking some of them with me in it despite my protest and trying to cover my face. Then they started pouring something all over the place that I couldn't identify. But since I had no way to tell if it was chemicals or poison or something, there was no way I could sell anything in that area. They talked about an animal's life being wasted, but then they destroy what could be food for many people, making it really all go to waste. I got a call from one of my workers that I had to get to the other side where the rest of them seemed to have run off to. While I was in the slaughterhouse, I figured it was a good idea to grab my shotgun off the wall, just in case they did anything crazy. The cops had already been called, but if they decided to attack me or something before they arrived, I wanted to be ready. Especially because I knew that due to the distance, it took a little bit for the cops to arrive. They had gone into the dairy farm area and started breaking everything and trying to set my cows free. All they were doing was scaring the crap out of them, and once they had access to an open door, all stampeded out. While I did not even know until later that some other idiots decided it would be a great idea to also let my bulls out. Just to make sure the picture of what is happening is very clear to everybody, all the cows and bulls have been let outside at once. They were all scared out of their minds and running around in fear, and the majority of the 200 vegans also out in the same field. I kind of want to laugh at the irony of these people being attacked by creatures that they were saving, but I'm still too mad to laugh about it. The cows were not trying to hurt anybody, but they are just huge creatures scared and running around. While the bulls were a little bit more intentionally aggressive, these vegans really did not know anything about animals, because instead of hopping over a fence to safety, they were trying to take photos, talking to and petting the cows. I basically had a stampede going on, and like a light bulb going on, they finally realized they were in some danger. I had to use my gun to do a warning shot in order to save these vegan idiots. One bull even had to be put down, sadly, because he was about to go crazy on one of the vegan idiots, which instead of thanking me for saving their friends, the others were yelling and calling me a murderer. Trust me, I would have loved to shoot them instead of the animals, but I don't like the idea of going to jail. When the police arrived, they were mostly at a loss for what to do. I told them to order all the vegans to go over the fence again so I could calm my animals down. The police told them and they complied, but they were also still in protest mode. One told the police they were not leaving unless the animals were too, and that I should be arrested because I shot them right on the field. The police understood exactly what was going on, and with what I told them it was enough to arrest the entire group. who all decided they were going to lie on the ground as a protest, and I kid you not, they all started mooing. I wish I could make something that dumb up. It took hours for the police to get them all off my property and arrest them for trespassing and destruction of property. Of course, not all 200 were going to end up in prison or something, but basically the leaders that planned the entire thing were getting in huge trouble. Those 3 got charged with inciting a riot and being held responsible for everything that happened. They were going to have to pay me a ton of money to fix what they broke, and that included the cows and bulls I lost and the meat they had destroyed. They tried to take things to trial and claimed that I was mistreating animals and I should be the one arrested. All they were doing was liberating abused animals, which was pissing me off because I actually treat my cattle really well. They are on a good natural diet with no added hormones or anything, they are happy and they get a ton of time outside to graze and enjoy the sun. They were talking like I locked them in some factory and have them hooked up 24/7 to milkers until it kills them. They used photos they took during the riot as proof of how bad things were, but all it really proved was the destruction that they caused, showing how much beef they destroyed and how much stress they caused to the animals. Not even to mention that I get random state inspections all the time and have paperwork to show that I've never been in violation of anything. I've passed all criteria. What some people might not know is that you don't just get to do whatever you want and not get checked. Restaurants have health inspectors, factories get OSHA workers, and I get both plus more to make sure my animals are healthy and the conditions are good and everything is fine. The leaders went to jail for destroying my property and other charges, but it doesn't really stop anything because I know more of these incidents will happen. And people are going to get hurt by breaking into farms to save animals that they don't know the first thing about, or messing with equipment they don't understand. And yeah, ripe stars, I guess these entitled protesters certainly learned that they should never mess with a farmer again. Either way, the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. Posted by user redacted expletive on r/ripe stories. So I live in an apartment complex with a common area and a previous tenant put in a personal basketball hoop and moved out. We've had several groups of kids and adults during the pandemic try and use it who don't live at my apartment complex. The latest group was today. I actually asked them once already to keep it down since it was right by my unit. After they ignored me, I knocked on the family who lives in the adjacent building whose step they were sitting on because I knew they had kids. I asked her were any of these kids hers? She said they were, and I asked them to keep it down again because of the fact when the balls hit my common wall, it shook my whole unit. Our quiet hours are from 11 PM until 8 AM, but the main reason I went out there was because I could hear them over my earplugs and the shaking of my apartment. This also happened around 7:30 PM to 8 PM. They tried to tell me that they were using it because they don't have one where they lived at. So I rather nicely asked them to leave since they didn't live here. I did tell them that they could go to the park and play with the hoop there if they wanted one. Not once did I raise my voice at them or swear at them, mostly because I remember when I was that age and adults flying off at me and I didn't like it. Will give them credit for being respectful as well and even said thank you for their cooperation on this. Was trying to sleep in since tonight was my night off and got woken up by what I thought was a fight against a wall initially, so am I the a-hole here for asking them to leave since they did not live here? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments, but I would say OP is definitely not the a-hole. These kids just need to follow the rules and it might be a good lesson for them for the future. You don't just go to a random property or another house and then do stuff like this and bother people. That's not how the world works. Anyway, the next one is another revenge on wife story. This is a pretty simple one, but I love it because I saw my strategy slowly producing results in real time. I noticed about a year ago, my wife leaves the white crinkly tag on all home items we get. The pillows, the couch pillows, the bed pillows, the duvet, the extra long leather for show pillow, etc. I have no clue why. I ripped one off once in the beginning and she got all hot and bothered, so I said I didn't do it again. But the annoyance still stuck with me. I hate these tags. I think they look cheap, and after I realized it was a thing, it's all I can see looking around our home. I figured I would play the if you cannot beat them, just join them strategy, so I've made sure to turn the pillows to show the tags loud and proud. Now you definitely cannot miss them when you walk around. Guests overlooking at our nicely redone room? Bam! That stupid leather long pillow at the front of the other show pillows has that tag sticking up front and center. It's taken a few months, but I think she has realized what I've been doing and has jokingly said recently that I won and I can go rip off all the tags. Ripping a crinkly tag off has never felt so good and a beer has never tasted so sweet. And yeah, Ripe Stars, one interesting thing I instantly noticed after I moved to Thailand was that people here often like to leave even the plastic on new stuff. There are some families, when they buy a new couch or something, they literally keep the plastic on. Also, in many houses, even when you rent a new house or buy a new house or something, often there's still plastic on the light switches and other things like that, and some people like to keep it like that and don't even remove the plastic. That was so foreign to me the first time I saw that, because that's really not common where I come from, but I sort of got used to it. Where you come from, do you do this as well? I'm curious, let me know in the comments. Anyway, the next one is titled Stupid City Rules. This morning I was woken up by the noise of someone digging up my front yard and the yards of the rest of my street. Found out later that the city is putting in fiber optic internet cables, so I guess that is a plus. But well, we never received any notice that this was gonna happen, no letter in the mail, no flyer taped to the door, just nothing. That alone annoys me, but I can move past it. To get away from all the noise and annoyance, I took my wife out on her lunch break. She works from home. We were gone for maybe 45 minutes, and when we got back they had a large machine parked in my driveway, right where my car was, also blocking in my other car. I parked on the street and went to ask when they would move the machine. I wanted to be understanding and let it go if it was only gonna be for a minute, but none of the 20+ workers spoke English. I could not get them to understand my question, but I think they understood that I wanted that machine moved, as they moved it a few minutes later. I am fairly annoyed by now, but I tried to let it go until about an hour later I watched as they parked a truck with a trailer in front of my driveway. There was more than enough room on either side of my driveway to park this truck. I feel like they did this in retaliation to my complaint. I needed to go to work in about 45 minutes. I knew I could not talk to the workers since we did not speak the same language. I tried calling the city to see what the company was, but no one answered. So then I called the police non-emergency line to ask what I should do. They sent an officer who spoke Spanish and had them move the truck. The officer is the one who told me it was for fiber optic cables. The workers are now noticeably angry and keep staring at my house and talking. I have no idea about what, but the tone is not a happy one. I don't think I was wrong by calling the cops, but I wanted another opinion. When I did approach the workers before I knew of the language barrier, I tried to be polite and calm. I ended up just calling into work and switching my shift, as this ordeal had put me in a foul mood and gave me a headache. So people of Reddit, am I the a-hole here? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think that OP is the a-hole here or not? Comment number 1, not the a-hole, you cannot block people in. That's why they were forced to move. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, you did not have any tools left other than maybe a labored dialogue using Google Translate or something. The workers seem to be a-holes who don't care if they are inconveniencing anyone. And yeah, Ripe Stars, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what to think about this. If the workers really did not understand the native language there, then I feel like maybe they are not the a-holes, but instead their boss, because he did not make it clear what's going on. But then again, isn't it also just common decency to not do what the workers did in this story? It feels like it's very obvious to know that this is obviously not right. But anyway, the next one is titled Suing My Daughter-in-Law. Our son and daughter-in-law, 26-year-old, have been together for 2 years and live together. We have always thought she's a very nice girl and she seems to make my son happy, so there's no problem from us. Our son has his own law firm that he is currently trying to get started. We are very proud of him and we are fortunate enough to help him with a startup loan. Daughter-in-law works a retail job that she's very happy with. Some time ago, husband and I were over at their apartment and we decided to order some food. Husband and I wanted to pay, and since daughter-in-law was ordering from her phone, we gave her our card so she could draw the money from our account. We thought it goes without saying that this was to draw an amount once for the lunch. However, daughter-in-law apparently put our card into her Apple Pay and had been using it since. We did not notice for some months, but recently we saw withdrawals we didn't recognize. We had our accountant look into it and he discovered that number 1, daughter-in-law has been using our card on her phone, and that number 2, she has spent around $17,000. We were quite shocked and called her up and asked why the hell she's been using our card. She got very defensive, tries to deny it, and eventually said that she was entitled to it, and why do we care since we have not noticed her use over 4 months. We told her she needed to pay us back immediately or we would report her actions for theft. She apparently does not have the money to pay us back. We have gone to our son and he has offered to pay us back even though he actually cannot afford to. This is not about the money for us, but more about the fact that she has stolen a huge amount of money. While we are comfortable and it took us time to notice, we still recognize the seriousness of stealing $17,000. Our son has completely dismissed her behavior and excused it as her being stressed. She has taken no responsibility, and we are honestly wanting to go forward with the police report to teach her consequences to her actions. Would we be the a-holes for doing this? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. However, I would say if you steal $17,000, then there should be very serious consequences for you. This is not some excusable little mistake or something. This is clearly illegal and theft. Anyway, a comment on Reddit said, not the a-hole, 17k in theft is 17k in theft. Inexcusable behavior on her part, don't sue, just report her to the cops. Comment number 2, I work in law enforcement and if you report this to the police, they will take a report and forward the charges to the DA. Usually then the credit card cancels the debit portion as fraudulent. If you just chose to sue her civilly, you will still be liable for the debt, and even if you get a judgment, she may not pay it. I would not give her any special pass to avoid criminal charges. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.